stars above the Cadian Gate were bleeding, not with the steady, quiet fade of old age, but in violent, jagged bursts of crimson, like wounds torn open in the fabric of the void. The once proud ring of fortress worlds encircling the Eye of Terror, an eternal bastion against the nightmares beyond, now lay fractured. Great hulls of shattered starships drifted like the bones of celestial leviathans, their molten cores spilling into space as dying embers. The void was no longer silent. It roared with the low, eternal growl of the warp spilling through. Cadia itself burned. From the high spires of Casa Holm to the blackened ruins of Casa Kraf, fire poured from the heavens in long, unbroken lines. Orbital bombardments drawn out for cruelty, not efficiency. It was said that the planet's heartbeat could be felt through the stone. Now, that heartbeat faltered. Dust rose in great curtains, blotting out the sky, and through the haze the eye swirled like a great predator's gaze fixed on its prey. You, listener, you who have walked with us through the long nights of war and the longer nights of waiting, know that this story is more than words on the void. We tell it not to glorify the slaughter, nor to paint our ruin as something noble. It is simply the truth, and the truth is worth remembering. You who have chosen to hear it, know that we truly love and care for you, for this is not just the story of Cadia. It is the story of every soul who has stood, knowing the end would come. Before we begin the story in full, tell me, where in the world are you watching from? And what time is it there? Now grab your coffee, hold it close, and let's step together into the final hours of Cadia. Lord Castellan Alaric Varin stood upon the western bastion of the Elysian Wall, the wind dragging banners like tattered screams above him. Below, the trench lines burned with the orange flicker of Promethean fire, casting shifting shadows over the shattered Aquilus, carved into the bastion's stone. Each gust of ash-stinking air seemed to whisper names to him, names he knew, names he'd buried. The wall trembled every few minutes under the thunder of distant bombardment. He had learned to measure the enemy's progress by those tremors. Tonight, they were closer. The Eye of Terror loomed to the galactic north, a whirlpool of black and purple storms, its light bleeding across the Cadian night like a wound that could never close. Varin's eyes fixed on it with the same loathing and fear he had felt since youth. The pact he had made, gods, how long ago was it, was a memory that returned more vividly with each passing bombardment. The Magos had promised him no rusting of the body, no dimming of the mind until the Cadian Gate fell. That fall had always been a distant thing, spoken of in the abstract. Now, with the horizon aflame, Varin understood what it meant. The end of the gate was the end of him. Behind him, boots struck the stone. Commissar Derakar, her coat flaring behind her like the wings of a carrion bird. Reports from Casa Myrak, she said without salute. Fallen. The traitors raised their banner over the citadel before the civilians were even done screaming. Varin kept his gaze on the eye. How many escaped? None. Our retreat was cut by orbital fire. He nodded once. Then Casa Myrak has served its purpose. Dera's mouth tightened. That purpose was to hold the line, Castellan. He did not look at her. Everything holds the line, Commissar. Until it breaks. Then its purpose is to die buying time for the rest. For a moment, the wind was the only voice between them. Somewhere far below, a Lascanan scream was cut short. The ground beneath them shivered, not the deep drawn-out groan of artillery, but a sharp, cracking sound like ice under strain. Varin's hand drifted to the wall surface. He felt it, a fissure deep in the foundations. The Elysian wall had never cracked before, not in all the centuries since it was raised. He closed his eyes and listened. The stone's voice was faint but certain. It was the heartbeat of Cadia slowing. The first time he had walked this wall, the world had been alive with the pride of an unconquered people. He remembered the oath-taking ceremony, the feel of the plasteel badge pressed into his palm, the roar of the assembled Cassars swearing in unison. The Cadian Gate was eternal, they said. The eye would beat against it for 1,000 years and find nothing but defiance. That was before the truth had come to him, before he had learned that eternity was a word mortals used when they had no imagination for how short forever could be. He wondered, not for the first time, whether the pact with Magos Teral 9 had been a gift or a curse. Immortality had kept his sword arm strong, his mind sharp, his spirit unbroken. But it had also meant watching comrades grow old and fade, lovers turn to strangers, friends betray or die. And now, as Cadia burned, it meant he could not die before the gate fell. There was no retreat into anonymity, no quiet exile, only this wall, this moment, this end. Another tremor ran through the bastion, stronger than before. From the trenches came the howl of Vox orders, the dim, static-shrouded voice of Captain Mile, old friend, old rival, calling for reinforcement at the southern approaches. Dara stepped forward. Castellan, we cannot spare the men. We cannot spare the gate either, Verin murmured. Somewhere deep inside him, an unvoiced thought stirred. If the gate falls, I fall with it. Perhaps that is mercy. The wind carried the smell of promethium and blood up to the battlements. The eye's light flared, and for an instant the whole sky above Cadia was the colour of a fresh wound. The rumble of artillery swelled again, distant, then nearer, until the bastion shuddered. From the north came the first booming note of a breech charge detonating against the inner walls. Alaric Verin rested both hands upon the cold stone, feeling the life of the fortress beneath him. His voice was low, almost lost to the wind. The hour comes. And as the last of Cadia's suns slid below the burning horizon, the Elysian wall began to crack in earnest. The smoke and thunder of the present dissolved into memory. For a moment, the world was not ash, but steel and gold. The air was not poisoned by burning promethium, but carried the clean bite of winter wind over Cassahorn's parade grounds. Before him stretched the heart of Cadia, rank upon rank of guardsmen, their laser guns gleaming in the pale sunlight, boots aligned as though measured by the Emperor himself. The banners above them snapped sharp in the wind, each one embroidered with the sigils of the Cassars, black eagles on fields of white, scarlet lightning bolts over green, the golden starburst of the Elysian Gate, Lord Castellan Alaric Verin, though at that time he was merely Captain Verin, stood at the head of his regiment, armour polished until it reflected the sky. His breath steamed in the cold, yet his spine was straight, his voice steady. He was younger then, but already the lines at the corners of his eyes spoke of long campaigns in far-flung systems. He had come home bloodied but unbeaten, and Cadia welcomed its sons with pride. A great dais had been raised in the centre of the square. Upon it stood the Lord Castellan of the day, flanked by the commissariat's black-coated overseers and the crimson-robed priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Behind them, the Cadian flag rippled against the fortress wall, a vast sheet of white marked with a black aquila, each wing tipped in gold. It was here, before the eyes of tens of thousands, that every Cadian swore the oath. "Raise your right hand," the Lord Castellan commanded. A sea of hands lifted as one, Verin's among them. Repeat after me. I shall hold the gate. The voices came like a single thunderclap. I shall hold the gate. I shall never yield it to foe or fiend. I shall never yield it to foe or fiend. I shall give my life, my blood, and my soul until Cadia stands no more. The last words rolled across the square like the slow toll of a great bell. Until Cadia stands no more. That was the day he first met the three who would shape his fate. To his right, standing with perfect posture despite a long scar that cut across her cheek, was Commissar Dara Carr. Even then, her eyes were the colour of gunmetal and as merciless. She had a voice like sharpened steel, and a will that brooked no compromise. Rumour said she had executed her own instructor during a live-fire exercise for hesitating to carry out an order. When she swore the oath, her words rang as if they were chiselled into stone. Behind Veren, in the second row of officers, stood Captain Yorin, broad-shouldered, a smile that could talk down a commissar, and the kind of man who carried a flask to every engagement. For victory or defeat. They had fought together during the Skadi's rebellions, their backs pressed against the same wall, and had walked away laughing. Miles swore the oath with an almost casual reverence, as though certain he would never live to see its end tested. And at the edge of the dais, gleaming under the sun like a shard of some alien machine god, stood Magos Teral 9 of the Adeptus Mechanicus. His eyes were coal green lenses, his hands ending in brass fingers that clicked softly as they moved. The Magos did not speak the oath. He was not Cadian by birth, but he watched with a precision that made Veren uneasy. It was only later that Veren would learn of the pact Teral 9 offered, a life that would not wither until the gate fell, a living sentinel bound to the fortress by the iron laws of the Mechanicus, and something older. At the time, the Magos was simply another figure in the crowd, unreadable and remote. After the ceremony, the regiments dispersed into the great mess halls and drill squares. The air inside was thick with the smell of stew and the sound of boots striking stone. Veren found himself at a long table, Mile across from him, Dara beside him, their plates piled high. "You speak the words like you believe them," Mile said between mouthfuls. "I do believe them," Veren replied. Mile leaned forward, voice low. "And if the day comes when holding the gate means burning Cadia itself to stop the foe, would you still believe?" Dara cut in, her tone like a blade. "That day will never come. Cadia does not fall. Every world falls," Miles said, meeting her gaze without flinching. "The question is whether we break first or the walls do." The argument died as an alarm bell tolled from somewhere deep in the fortress. Not a battle alarm, but the solemn chime of the Mechanicus summoning. Veren's name echoed over the Vox, Magos Teral 9 requesting his presence. He found the Magos in a quiet chamber beneath the fortress, the air heavy with incense and machine oil. Cogitator banks hummed in the darkness. "You are marked for greater service," Teral 9 said without preamble, his voice a blend of Vox static and metallic resonance. "I offer you the Sentinellum Pact. You will not age, will not weaken, will not fall to sickness. You will be the gate until it falls. When it does, your life ends with it. Do you accept?" Veren had not hesitated. "I do." There was pain then, and a taste like copper and ozone as something ancient and mechanical was written into his very flesh. When it ended, he felt no different, except for the certainty that death would not come to him until the gate lay in ruins. Years later, standing once more on the Elysian wall with the present burning around him, Veren would wonder if that moment, more than any other, had chained him to this ending. For now, in the warmth of memory, Cadia still stood. The banners still snapped in the wind. The oaths still rang true. And the idea that one day the gate might shatter was nothing more than a distant shadow on the far horizon. Night fell over Casserholm like a shroud, swallowing the last faint glow of the dying suns. The fortress walls, once proud and unyielding, now seemed to lean inward, as if listening to whispered secrets in the darkness. The air was thick with the smell of dust and burning oil, a bitter perfume that clung to the throat. Somewhere deep within the labyrinthine corridors beneath the Elysian wall, shadows moved, too fluid, too quick to be mere trickery of the light. Lord Castellan Alaric Varen paced the command chamber, its vaulted ceiling carved from stone older than the Imperium itself. Flickering hololiths projected battlefront updates, but his eyes saw only the dark corners beyond the screens. Sabotage. Magos Teral IX's voice broke the silence, metallic and low. Explosions in the munition stores. Void shields faltering without explanation. Communications disrupted in the lower districts. This is no accident. Varen's jaw tightened. Enemy agents within the walls. Likely, Teral IX replied. And worse, signals intercepted suggest heretical tech, alien in origin. A heavy knock echoed at the door. Commissar de Ricard entered, her face carved with the stern lines of duty and worry. Morale is fracturing, Castellan. The men fear shadows more than the enemy's guns. Varen looked to her. And what of Captain Mael? Dera's eyes flickered. He is restless, out beyond the lines more than within. When questioned, he speaks of scouting fringe worlds for allies. I do not trust him. A pang twisted in Varen's gut. Mael, the friend who once laughed in the face of death, now seemed a stranger. But suspicion was a dangerous thing here. We need proof before accusation. Proof, Dera whispered, will come in fire and blood. Varen turned back to the flickering battle maps, their glow casting sharp shadows on his worn face. Outside, a single star flickered and died, another sentinel extinguished in the encroaching night. In the quiet corridors beneath the fortress, footsteps echoed, soft and deliberate. A shadow slipped through the narrow passages, clutching a data slate close. It bore the seal of Cadia's highest command, yet its contents whispered treason. Later, Varen found a broken toy soldier on the ramparts, a child's plaything shattered in two. He knelt, fingers brushing the cracked plastic. It was a symbol, he thought, of something lost beyond return. The eye of terror churned overhead, its swirling storms mirroring the turmoil beneath the walls. The true battle for Cadia was no longer fought with bolters and lascannons. It was a war of trust and betrayal, a slow poison in the heart of the last bastion of humanity. As the first distant blasts of the Black Crusade fleet echoed through the void, Varen whispered a vow to the dying stars. Cadia would hold, or it would burn with them all. The void screamed. The first salvo tore through the silence above Casserholm like a falling star ablaze. Bright, terrible, and unstoppable. Against the black tapestry of space, the shattered fleet of Cadia's defenders fought with fury born of desperation. Starship hulls exploded in cascades of molten metal and burning fuel, their shattered remains drifting like frozen corpses in the endless dark. Below, on the fortress walls, the ground thrummed with the distant echoes of void bombardment. Every blast was a hammer blow against the fortress's ancient bones, reverberating in the chest of Lord Castellan Alaric Varen like a warning bell. The first breach came not with fanfare but with a sickening groan. The outer walls cracked where enemy forces had laid their charges, the stone splintering and crumbling. Varen stood at the command dais, eyes narrowed, the weight of impossible decisions pressing on him. A vox crackled in his ear, the voice of Captain Jorin Mail, ragged but alive. Southern approaches overwhelmed, requesting reinforcements, now. Varen's hand trembled on the controls, a momentary falter betraying the storm within. Every man sent was a life wagered against the inevitable. Every order carried the weight of potential betrayal. Commissar Derakar appeared beside him, fierce and unwavering. "Castellan, hold fast. We cannot abandon the gate." Varen's reply was cold steel. "We hold the gate, or we hold nothing. Reinforcements to the south, but I will not strip the void defences. If the fleet falls, so does Cadia." Dara's eyes burned. "And if the ground falls first, what then?" A bitter silence stretched between them, broken only by the distant screams of laser guns and the roar of heavy bolters. Mile returned from his scouting mission days earlier, bearing wounds no one dared ask how he received. His gaze was distant, shadowed with secrets. When questioned, his words were evasive, a tangle of half-truths and urgent warnings of betrayals yet unseen. Varen's trust wavered, but did not break. Then came the order no Castellan wants to give. Open the corridors to the inner sanctum. Seal the outer defences with void charges. If the worst comes, we sacrifice the outer wards to save the heart. The crushing knowledge settled like a shroud. Entire regiments would be left to the fury outside, while the fortress's core remained intact, at least for a time. And then the unthinkable. The decision to detonate a loyal fleet, trapped between enemy warships and the fortress, to close a warp rift and stop a surge of demonic incursion. Varen's lips tightened as he gave the order, knowing the cost was thousands of lives, loyal ones. Yet such sacrifice was the grim calculus of survival. The distant void boiled with fire and death, the breach widening. The Cadian Gate was cracking. The war was no longer one of hope, but of endurance. Varen's gaze hardened. The next days would decide not only the fate of a world, but the soul of an empire. The fortress that once stood unyielding now breathed with whispers. Steel halls echoed with quiet conversations veiled in doubt, and eyes once steadfast darted with suspicion. The name traitor slipped through the ranks like a blade in the dark, cutting deep without sound. Lord Castellan Alaric Varen walked the battered corridors beneath Casa Horn, the weight of command a cold iron chain around his shoulders. The scent of scorched stone and spilled oil was ever present, a reminder that every step might be his last in this dying world. Morale, once the fortress's strongest bulwark, was fraying. Soldiers murmured of betrayal, of conspiracies spun in shadowed chambers. No one knew whom to trust. Commissar Derakar tightened discipline with an iron fist, her gaze sharp enough to carve suspicion into flesh. But even her will was tested. Varen's mind lingered on Captain Jorin Mail. The man's absences, unexplained journeys beyond the walls, and whispered contacts with unknown allies gnawed at the Castellan's resolve. Yet evidence was scarce. Only fleeting shadows of conversations overheard, and secrets locked behind cold steel doors. One night, a messenger arrived, pale, wounded, and clutching a scroll sealed with the emblem of Cadia's highest command. Before Varen could read the message, a shot rang out, and the messenger crumpled to the floor, blood blooming like a dark star on his robes. The parchment caught flame, its secrets devoured before they could be known. The flame's flicker cast long, flickering shadows over Varen's face as he stared down at the ashes. The truth was slipping away, replaced by fear and doubt. The fortress was turning inward, its own heart poisoned by lies. Magos Teral IX's voice was a cold whisper in the dark. The pact that binds you to Cadia falters. Your immortality wanes with every fracture of this world. Varen clenched his fists. The unyielding guardian of the gate now faced an enemy within himself, a slow erosion of hope, and the creeping poison of despair. Outside, the eye of terror churned, its black storm mirroring the chaos festering inside Cadia's walls. Amid the steel and lies, Varen made a silent vow. He would uncover the traitor's face, no matter the cost. For in this crucible of shadows, only truth could hold the gate, or else all would fall into ruin. The night was heavy, as though the very air mourned what was to come. Kasserhorn's streets, usually alive with the disciplined hum of preparation, lay eerily silent beneath a sickle moon. Lanterns flickered like dying fireflies, casting long shadows that seemed to twist and writhe in the stillness. The fortress held its breath. Lord Castellan Alaric Varen moved through the barracks with slow steps, each footfall echoing against coal stone walls. Faces, once bright with youthful defiance, now showed lines carved by exhaustion and dread. He paused beside a soldier polishing a laser gun, the young man's hands trembling ever so slightly. "Rest, soldier. Tomorrow we hold the line," Varen said softly, voice barely more than a whisper. The soldier nodded, eyes fixed on the far horizon, where the eye churned like an angry god's wound. In the command chamber, Magos Teral IX stood silent, fingers tapping a slow rhythm against the cold metal table. The cogitators hummed, processing endless streams of data, yet none could predict the chaos that waited beyond the shields. Commissar Derakar entered, her face a mask of steel and sorrow. "The men look to you, Castellan. Hope is a fragile weapon tonight." Varen met her gaze, his own weary yet unbroken. "Hope is all we have left." Outside, distant echoes rumbled, the first stirrings of the Black Crusade fleet massing beyond the void. A storm was coming, vast and terrible. He thought of the oath sworn, the promises carved in stone and blood. He thought of friends lost, of betrayals yet unspoken. And he wondered, as the shadows deepened, when the storm broke, what would remain of Cadia? The silence stretched, a fragile veil before the roar, and beneath the fortress, in the hidden depths, eyes watched, cold, calculating, and waiting for the moment to strike. The sky was a tapestry torn asunder, no longer the quiet void of distant stars, but a storm of fire and smoke, where exploding warships bloomed like deadly flowers against the black. The great void above Kasserhorn roared with the fury of 1,000 death cries, each blast hammering the fortress walls with relentless insistence. Lord Castellan Alaric Varen stood amidst the shattered ruins of the outer bastion, his armor scorched and dented, eyes reflecting the inferno above. The assault had begun, not just from without, but from within. Fires blazed in the lower districts, fed by sabotage and betrayal. Trusted allies fell to hidden blades. Whispered lies turned brother against brother. Varen's heart was a storm of rage and sorrow, battling the knowledge that the fortress was unraveling on two fronts. From the command dais, Commissar Derakar's voice cut through the chaos, rallying the defenders with the iron resolve that had become legend. "Stand fast. The gate holds because we hold it." The ground shook as demon engines burst through the shattered gates, their twisted forms silhouetted against the burning horizon. Captain Jorin Mail fought alongside Varen, though shadows lingered in his gaze, shadows cast by secrets and betrayals still unspoken. Varen's mind flashed back to the broken toy soldier, an emblem of innocence lost in the crushing weight of war. Every choice, every sacrifice had led to this inferno. As warp energy crackled and reality bent beneath the assault, Varen clenched his fists. The price of defiance was written in blood and flame. The sky was fire. The gate was burning. The walls whispered secrets no longer meant to be hidden. In the dim glow of the war-torn corridors beneath Carcer, Holm, truth clawed its way from shadowed silence into the harsh glare of accusation. Every step echoed like a death knell. Every glance carried the weight of suspicion sharpened to a blade. Lord Castellan Alaric Varen stood before the shattered remnants of the command chamber, eyes blazing with the fire of betrayal. The evidence lay bare, a tangled web of coded transmissions, clandestine meetings, and the cold machinery of treason. Commissar Derakar's voice cut through the tension, unwavering and fierce. The traitor walks among us, cloaked in the trust of brothers. The gathered officers exchanged glances heavy with disbelief and dread. Among them, Captain Jorin Mael met Varen's gaze, his face a mask of grim resolve and unspoken regret. The moment hung suspended, a breath held before the plunge into darkness. Varen's voice was low, but thunderous. "Speak. Show us the face of this betrayal." Miles stepped forward, the weight of 1,000 battles etched in every line of his scarred visage. "I carried the burden alone too long. I sought allies in the fringe worlds, but found only despair. I sought to save Cadia by any means, by turning to forbidden powers." A shudder passed through the assembly. "You brought heresy within our gates." Miles' eyes glistened with a bitter fire. The choice was ruin or ruin. I chose the lesser. I am the betrayer. But my loyalty, my love for Cadia, remains. Varen's heart fractured between fury and sorrow. The friend who once laughed in defiance was now the architect of their darkest hour. The eye of terror churned above, as if mocking the fragile threads of trust still held. As chains of betrayal tightened around them, Varen knew the true battle was far from over. The promise made beneath cold stone had shattered. In the heart of the fortress, where once oaths had been sworn and honor upheld, now lay only ruin, both of walls and of trust. The air was thick with smoke and bitter regret, mingling with the cries of the wounded and the dying. Lord Castellan Alaric Varen stood alone amid the remnants of the War Council chamber. The once proud banners, torn and singed, hung limply from broken poles. His eyes, heavy with the burden of immortality, searched the void beyond the shattered windows, where the eye of terror churned with merciless hunger. Magos Teral 9 approached, his mechanical frame casting long shadows beneath flickering hololiths. "The pact we forged, Castellan, was meant to bind you to this world and this cause. But the fractures grow too deep. Your immortality is tethered to Cadia's fate, yet the world bleeds beyond repair." Varen's voice was a hollow echo. "The gate is broken, the oath broken. What remains for those bound to a dying cause?" Terrell 9's lenses flickered, betraying a rare trace of sorrow. "Survival demands sacrifice, but the price is steep. Your soul, your purpose, all undone." From the ruined halls came the distant rumble of the final assault. The Black Crusade's forces surged forward, the sound like thunder beneath the earth. Varen's hands clenched the remnants of a shattered Aquila, its fractured wings a mirror to his own fractured resolve. The years of loyalty, the countless lives lost, the betrayals endured, all weighed upon him like a tomb. "I swore to hold the gate until the end," he whispered. "But the end has come, and I am left with nothing but ashes." The fortress trembled once more. Outside, the ice storms swept closer, and with them, the darkness that would consume all. The streets of Kasserholm had become rivers of blood. Once proud avenues lined with statues and banners now ran slick with crimson, echoing with the cries of the wounded and the roar of relentless bolter fire. Smoke coiled like dark serpents from shattered buildings, and the air was thick with the metallic tang of death. Lord Castellan Alaric Veyron moved with grim purpose through the chaos, his armour scoured and scarred, every step weighed down by the lives lost underfoot. Around him, soldiers fought not just for victory, but for survival, their faces etched with exhaustion and fury. Commissar Dara Carr barked orders with unyielding precision, her voice a beacon amidst the carnage. Hold the line, no step back. Yet the enemy pressed harder, the Black Crusade's demonic war engines stomping like giants, tearing through barricades and shattering hope. Every corner held the threat of ambush, every shadow concealed betrayal. Captain Yorin Mael fought alongside his men, but the weight of his treachery hung between him and Veyron like a blade. Their eyes met briefly, a silent acknowledgement of broken bonds amidst the bloodshed. From the depths of the city rose the screams of the dying and the prayers of the faithful, their voices a haunting chorus beneath the firestorm. Veyron's mind raced. Each lost street, each fallen brother, was a step closer to oblivion. Yet even as despair clawed at his heart, he refused to yield. For Cadia, for the gate, for the oaths forged in fire and blood, the fight would rage on, until the very last breath. Dawn bled through the fractured sky like a wound, casting pale light on the shattered ruins of Kasserholm. The once mighty fortress was now a skeleton of broken walls and smouldering rubble. Yet amid the ruin, the survivors gathered, tired, battered, but unbroken. Lord Castellan Alaric Veyron stood before the last assembly of warriors, their faces grim masks carved by loss and defiance. The echoes of countless battles had faded into a heavy silence, broken only by the crackle of distant gunfire and the murmured prayers of the faithful. Commissar Dara Carr paced before the ranks, her presence steel incarnate. "This is the hour," she intoned. "The gate may be shattered, but our will is not. Today we make our last stand, not just for Cadia, but for all humanity." Captain Jory Mail stood nearby, his scars and shadows deepened by betrayal, yet his voice carried the weight of resolve. "We fight not because we will live to see victory, but because the alternative is unthinkable." Veyron raised his voice, steady and commanding. "For every fallen brother, for every shattered hope, we rise again. The eye of terror may rage above, but it will not claim us easily." The soldiers tightened grips on lasguns and chainswords, a symphony of steel and resolve. In their eyes burned the last embers of defiance, refusing to be extinguished. Above them, the dark skies roared with the coming storm. The final battle was at hand. The sky was a shattered canvas of fire and ash, the eye of terror's storm ripping through the void with a fury unmatched in millennia. Kasserholm's battered walls trembled beneath the onslaught, cracks spiderwebbing like veins of despair. Lord Castellan Alaric Veyron stood amid the shattered command chamber, his armour scorched and bloodied, eyes burning with fierce determination. Around him, the last of Cadia's defenders rallied for a final desperate push, a testament to a people who refused oblivion. Outside, the demonic legions surged forward, their howls like the cries of the damned, crashing against the shattered bastions. The fortress's guns roared, but for every enemy felled, two more took their place. Commissar Derakar's voice rang out, steel and fire. "Hold the line, for Cadia, for the Emperor." Captain Yorinmail fought at Verin's side, his every move a dance between redemption and regret. The betrayal lingered like a shadow, but in this moment, only survival mattered. The ancient walls groaned, and the ground shook as the final breach widened, spilling chaos into the heart of the fortress. Verin felt the weight of centuries pressing down, the immortal pact fraying with each loss. In a moment of grim clarity, he understood. Cadia's fall was not just the loss of stone and steel, but the breaking of a spirit. Yet even as the last gates fell and darkness crept in, Verin's voice rose above the storm. "We may fall today, but Cadia's flame will never be extinguished." The walls cracked. The defenders fell. The gate was broken. The ruins of Cadia lay silent beneath a bruised sky. The once mighty fortress now a tomb of ash and shattered dreams. Lord Castellan Alaric Verin stood alone amid the crumbled stones, his armour scorched and scarred, eyes reflecting the cold light of distant stars. The pact that bound him, forged in blood and iron, felt like a chain that tightened with every breath. Behind him, the horizon burned, a relentless firestorm that consumed all hope and memory. The eye of terror churned above, a storm eternal and merciless, swallowing worlds and destinies alike. Beside him, Magos Teral IX's cold mechanical gaze scanned the devastation. The gate is lost, the oath broken. Only exile remains. Verin's voice was a fractured whisper. And what of the pact? The immortality granted by the Mechanicus? The Magos' brass fingers tapped against his chest plate, a metronome of finality. Bound to the gate's survival, your life fades with its fall. Your exile is both punishment and mercy. Verin turned away from the ruins, each step heavy with the weight of millennia yet to bear. He was a relic of a fallen age, a living ghost haunted by the memories of loyalty, betrayal, and sacrifice. In his heart, the question burned: to cling to the shadow of a lost empire, or to forge a new path in the darkness beyond. The stars waited, cold and indifferent, as the exiled Castellan disappeared into the void, an echo of a world that no longer was. The endless black stretched out, cold and silent, broken only by the distant pulse of dying stars. In the void between worlds, two figures drifted, ghostly silhouettes against the abyss. Lord Castellan Alaric Verin and Captain Yorinmail, bound by blood and betrayal, faced each other one last time. The airlock hissed shut behind them, sealing away the dying echoes of Cadia's fallen. Here, beyond the war-torn skies, past the shattered gate, only the weight of their choices remained. Verin's voice was low, heavy with the burden of millennia. "You chose to betray us all, Mael. Yet here you stand, seeking redemption in the void." Mael's eyes held a flicker of regret, shadowed by defiance. "I betrayed the fortress, yes, but never the people. I sought a path through darkness to save what little remained." Their power armor bore the scars of endless battle, their weapons silent but deadly, waiting for the moment fate demanded action. Words gave way to steel, a dance of shadows and light, the clash of blades echoing in the void where no sound could travel. Each strike was a question, each parry a bitter answer. As stars flickered and died in the vast emptiness, so too did the fragile hope between them. When the final blow came, it was not with triumph, but with sorrow, a sacrifice born of duty and despair. In that silent void, two warriors became legends, forever entwined in the tragic fall of Cadia. The void swallowed the remnants of Cadia whole, leaving only whispers among the stars. Lord Castellan Alaric Varen drifted alone, his armour scarred, his soul burdened by centuries of war and loss. The pact that had once promised eternal vigilance now felt like a curse, an unending vigil over ashes and ghosts. Around him, the cosmos stretched cold and indifferent, a vast expanse where dying suns flickered like mournful candles. He remembered the faces lost, the oaths broken, the betrayals that carved deep wounds into his heart. Immortality had been both his gift and his prison, a sentence to watch empires rise and fall, to endure the agony of endless conflict, and to bear the weight of decisions that had shattered worlds. Yet even in the darkness, a faint light lingered, the memory of Cadia's courage, its last defender's sacrifice, and the spark of hope that refused to be snuffed out. Varen's voice, a whisper barely heard against the vast silence, carried a solemn vow. Though the gate is broken, the spirit of Cadia will echo through the stars, a warning and a beacon for those who come after. As the last star faded, the echoes of the fallen rippled through the void, timeless, haunting, eternal.